how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice, it's for entertainment purposes only. Alright, looks like we actually are streaming live now. Sorry, we had a problem. OBS was down on Tuesday when I tried to stream. So, we'll go ahead and give this a shot and see if everyone can hear me and everything's good. What's up, Rob? How are you? Excuse me. Alright, so I think everything's good. Let me try. How's the volume? Alright, good. You can hear? Is everyone Tarifa again? That's the weird thing, right? The weird thing about our Discord is now everyone is Tarifa and everyone is Nutjob, and I don't know who's who anymore. Alright. So, obviously, we'll start with the SPY. Wait till maybe a couple more people come in here. What's up, Tom? How are you, Ben? I'm good. I was going to say, sorry about Tuesday. I tried to get on, and OBS, the servers are all crashed, so I couldn't stream. So, I was intending on streaming. I actually did technically stream. I just did it on the Discord in the voice chat and allowed people to kind of just talk in there, and we did a short show in there. Oh, good. The volume's great, crisp and clear. All right, so I think what we're going to do is we'll start with the SPY, and then we will go into, let me pull up Discord as well while we're kind of all waiting. How's everyone been? Everyone's been good? Yeah, like, so obviously we broke out of this, and we've now fallen to the downside. I'll zoom in a little bit. I thought what was interesting was this. So this was basically the last, 6 days. So this was today, yesterday, right? This was, I believe, Tuesday, right? So what happened was we were down here, and it gapped up all the way to, here. So we went from basically, 400 all the way up to, 406, 407. Pushed up in that morning, and then it fell all day, and then yesterday they tried pushing it up back into the wedge, and it basically fell down below the wedge, back tested and fell, and then I think gapped down technically today. So we did not fill this gap here, so we've left a gap here on the SPY at basically roughly the right, because right now we finished at 390, right? Is that right? Let's see. Let's pull up. Yeah, we finished at 389.63. So, what happened here, obviously, was the Fed minutes came out, and there was no shock. This is where I think people have been kind of they got everyone really bullish, right? Because we had been in this uptrend for the last couple of weeks. They kind of got everyone oh, maybe things are going to be good. There's going to be a Santa rally. Everything's good. This resistance line has been acting as a really, really good area to kind of check out. Every time it's came up against this resistance line, it's rejected and then fallen, right? Makes a lower low, climbs back up, hits the line again, makes another lower low down here. Then we've been in this uptrend. This was the weird day where we literally gapped down to 340s and then just instantly pushed straight up, right? So that was a hard bottom. So what we have to kind of do is figure out, we're running in this channel right now, and my guess is, because we're not going to see a straight line down, right? That's not going to happen. You're going to see these swings back and forth as we climb down until we basically come up. Now, this is just a gap. I put this down here because this is kind of some of my targets. This was a gap from the election cycle, if I remember correctly. Was that right? November of 2020. Yeah, so this was the election cycle where it gapped up a couple days in a row. And then, what's up, Hustle? How are you? What's up, SS? Liam? MULN was crazy today. I actually didn't look at MULN today. I know they had an announcement, right? They were adding... what did they add? They added like a new person, right? They announced like someone put in an order with them. They also had, I thought they signed like a CFO or something like that. Or let me see if I can find it. So it looks like I'm not touching MULN for right now. They just have too many like shares outstanding. I know that they're near the bottom. They've been oversold for a while. I just I don't know if you guys remember this, but I'll pull up MULN real quick so you guys can see. So MULN back in this time frame here, right, was kind of chopping around. It went through, gapped up huge. Everyone was like, this is, gonna run. I think was it January where it like made a huge spike up and then came back down. This thing's just been chopping so much. But the shares outstanding back when it was during this time frame, it literally had like 5 million shares outstanding, and then I think it went up to, let me see if I can pull it up real quick so you guys can see. If you go to dilution tracker and we pull up MULN, so here's what was going on, right? So back here you had literally like 5 million shares outstanding, and then they started getting, remember the short exempts were like flying out the door, and people were, we noticed it, and a couple other like groups noticed that the short exempts were getting really, really high, and they seemed like they were controlling the price. And what we figured out, I think, was they were unloading a bunch of warrants, and also I think they were actively issuing out like more shares. So there was a huge amount of dilution. Like you went from 5 million shares in September, 5.4 million, to 23 million, then 23, to all of a sudden you were at 284 million shares outstanding. Like that's a lot, right? And like institutions don't own the stock. Like the top 25 institutions only own 5% of the stock. So there's a lot of shares outstanding on this thing. I mean, you're talking about 1.4 billion shares outstanding with another 266.72 million convertible notes and another 11 million preferred notes. So like you've got a whole bunch of dilution still, like, that's the reason why the stock price is so low. They have so many shares outstanding at this point. And they don't have like a ton of cash. Like I know they've had some expenses with factories and all that stuff, but like they've been burning through cash like it's going out of style. So for me, I'm not looking at this thing like, maybe it runs, maybe it doesn't, but for me, I'm not touching it. This thing's been grinding down and down, and like they've completely diluted on their shareholders. Like we complain about Ethereum. Imagine going from where we're in Ethereum, right? It goes from, our dilution went from 60 million to basically 100 million, 40 million share. It's not that way now, but it will be in the future when eventually the stock price runs up and they unlock those warrants. But can you imagine going from 60 million, or even like in this case, 20 million to 284 million shares outstanding? Like any sort of like, I understand they were raising cash, but like they're almost out of the cash that they raised. And they did not get good prices for this. Like, I mean, you can go back and look, but I mean, they really did not get good prices for those things. these conversion prices, like 25 cents, like these ones aren't even registered yet. Oops. But anyway, yeah, it's just not a ticker I'm gonna touch personally. Maybe it runs up, but I'm just, yeah, that's a huge amount of shares outstanding and a huge float for a company that's not even put out real vehicles on the road yet. So I'm not touching that. Other people can. Same thing with MMAT. Like I'm not really touching that thing just because like I think I see what's going on that one. Somebody was like, "Oh, well, they landed a deal with Mitsubishi's," and I was like, that's great. It's over a bunch of years, and they still have to like, you know, they are not going to get that cash right now. And when you kind of look at their like cash flow, their cash flow is not good. So like for the people that were like, oh well, MMTLP is done, but we can just shift over to MMAT. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's a totally different thing. Like they just registered this ATM right here for like 250 million, a $250 million. They just registered this. You don't think they're going to dump on them? Look at the history. They've been dumping on them, right? Went from 50 million shares outstanding to, where are they at now? Close to 400 million shares outstanding. So yeah, I'm not touching that one either. Maybe once the dilution happens, and if they still have cash, then it's okay. But like, I'm not touching it before then. I will let it run up though, because if they do like a run on warrants and push the stock price up, and then at that point I might look at playing it to the downside and then back up. But like, I don't know. Like this to me looks like it's a dangerous play. And I remember we talked about this because I think there was another ticker that was running up when ATER was running up. If you guys remember, I'm trying to remember what it was. And everybody was like, this is the thing. Like, you guys are all dumb for Ethereum. And I was like, it's too risky. Like, the S1 can be filed at any point. And they're like, oh, it's going to take months for the S1 to get filed. And it didn't. It took literally. And I was like, if you look how quickly these things are starting to turn around. No, it wasn't Prague. It was. What was it called? It actually wasn't a horrible, like, company. The second run on Ethereum, the April one, there was another ticker that was getting popular, and I bet if we look up on Reddit, go back in the history, there was one that looked like it was a decent, like, little thing. The company didn't look horrible overall, but they needed cash, and they were filing an S1, and everyone was like, "There's no way this thing, moves before then. It takes them forever to do this." And I'm like, it's too risky. Like, why even touch that? So, man, what was that called? Because I even wrote like some DD on it saying like, listen, I looked at like, what time frame was that? That was around May, so April maybe. Oh man, like was it GTII? No. Man, come on. Anyone else have an idea? Nah, Bior is Prague. Prague became Bior. Yeah, because I mean, literally, this. I remember some guy was like, he compiled a list of how quickly things were getting like filed, and I was like, I'll take a look at it, and I went through his stuff, and I'm like, you're right. Like these filings are going faster and faster. So, because I'm like looking back at my messages, because remember somebody hit me up and sent me this link, and I was like, I'll review it for you. And when I looked at it, I was like, yep. Oh, was it AVCT? Was that it? AVCT? No, it wasn't them. Was it? I don't think it was them. It's going to bother me if I don't remember. Nobody's got it? No one remembers back then? Let's see. Was it BTIG? No, that's not even a thing. It wasn't BBIG. It wasn't. Yeah, because I remember, like, do you guys remember all the characters that used to be on Short Sweep? It wasn't GOEV, I don't think. Yeah, it wasn't GOEV. Essentially, though, they had a filing that was coming up, and it was like right around the same time Materion was like starting to pump, and everybody wanted to know, like, you were on one team or the other, and can't believe how many people were writing me back then. So many people. All right. I guess we'll never know. But there was it SS, was it SS something, SST? No, SS. Why do I feel like it had an S in it? Yeah, a bunch of people asked me about chamber energy back then, and I told them I didn't like it. A bunch of people asked me about Smell Direct Club, and I'm sorry. This is just bothering me now. I really just wanted to like take a look at this ticker. I thought it was like SSR or something like that. People asked about Sizu. Yeah, this is. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I can't find it. I wish I could remember. What was it March? I feel like it was like March time frame when whatever. So Macaulay, what is it? Cauliflower Culkin. Interesting, fun name. All right, you want to look at the SPY? All right. So SPY really kind of did its Wyckoff distribution already up at the top. It kind of went through this like series, went off to this top, and then since then it's just been kind of like going down. Now we're just basically in this like descending like channel right here. It tried to gap up and break through here. It failed, rejected, and now we're back here. So if you kind of just imagine it like if we were just to draw, I'm not even drawing a real line. I'm just going to give you like an idea. If I probably have to zoom out on this. Oops. You figure if we basically were to like round this out and probably find a couple points to connect, but basically I see us kind of being in this channel going down like here until either, they decide that, they've had enough. We maybe fill a gap down here, or possibly, I think this one already filled. This gap here filled. So we're looking at this gap down here. Now, I've seen people's SST had a filing around April. Yep, that's it. Thank you, Liam. It was SST. And SST, right, System 1, that's what it was. And remember, it moved up. And everybody was like, oh my God, and people piled in on this stock. And then literally as fast as it went up, it went down pretty quickly. Because as soon as they got the dilution, the S1, it just gap down. Now it's left a pretty big gap here. Someday that gap may fill. I mean, it gapped up here and so there's an area of liquidity in the 18s like that has never been really touched. Because if you look at this thing, started out here, right? Came through, made that huge run, and this area of liquidity is really, really light. There's not a lot of this has never been explored. So they're pushing it down, but at some point, I wouldn't be shocked if they, start being profitable in the future to see this area kind of be an area that they need to explore. I've not looked into SST since then. I mean, we could take a look if you guys want. Let's see what SST is doing now. System 1 got a much bigger market cap. That's what I was saying. They weren't like a small market cap company. They actually had some, like big names in it, not huge positions, but they did have like a pretty major investor that is holding on to this stock. Have they gotten any news? They're looking for investors. They're going to participate in the Credit Suisse Technology Conference. Probably try to land more investors. Let's see. But anyhow, thank you, Liam. Appreciate that. Yeah, because basically this was what we were talking about. Our run in ATER and this run ran right next to each other, but they had the S1 that was like, they were like, oh, well, then it's going to take them months to get it. We're going to be able to squeeze this thing to like $200 a share. And I was like, I'm not putting my money there. And it fell pretty quickly. I mean, but this is something just to keep an eye on right here. This $18 range between basically 17 and 18 is an area of liquidity that they've never really explored. So I would be curious to see if someday this stock does go back up to this range. And what do they have, you think, for... Curious to see what they have for shares outstanding. Let me pull up Vortex real quick. I will tell you guys. I just saw Random wrote me. Random thinks Google's getting close to another change of direction. Okay. But SST, System 1. Let's see. We got 2 buys, a hold, and a sell. Insiders have been buying over the last 3 months. Not a bad thing. Though they did sell a whole bunch back in this upper range, right? So when this thing was squeezing, they were like their insiders were selling. Like, in fact, you see the clusters of where they sold. So this was a buy before the run. They knew the filing was coming up, and then they sold. Insiders were just selling all during this time frame, pushed the stock down. They sold 41 million shares. So most of them got out. Now, like I said, there's an area of liquidity right here that has never been really explored. So I'd be super curious about that. What's up, Greg? How are you, bud? So something to look at. It looks like with people starting to buy down here again, the CFO bought some down here. You know, is this the start of something long term that, you know, be nice to take a look at their. I'd have to take a look at their balance sheet, but something to look at and consider. I will tell you guys about some stock that I'm looking at now, which is it's a much safer and bigger name. So MTB is M&T Bank, and I was going through a scanner this morning, and I found them, and the share price right now is 141. It closed up a little bit, right? So let's see. It looks like they've got branches across Buffalo, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Connecticut. They're the home of the Baltimore Ravens, and their headquarters, and also apparently they're the official bank of the Buffalo Bills. So these guys right here, this M&T Bank, they're a pretty large one, I guess, on the East Coast. But what I ended up finding out about them was they right now on the RSI, let me pull that up real quick. So if we put up MTB, these guys right now are super oversold. So if you look here on the daily, right? I mean, this thing's sub 30. So this line right here, I believe, is 30 on the RSI. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see the couple times they've gotten oversold like this, it has recovered a little bit from there. Doesn't have to be a massive run, but you can see here's their peak, right up here when it was completely overbought, and right now we're entering this time where we're getting really, really oversold. So from just like I started looking at their financials are actually fine. Like if you actually look at their like earnings per share, all that stuff looked pretty decent. They don't have any, like, their cash flow positive. Sure, their macro could be bad in the next quarter, and that's why some people are, probably possibly taking profits on it. But it's going to get a relief at some point because things don't stay down here oversold less than 30 for long periods of time on large cap companies. I believe they have 250 million shares outstanding. Or sorry, not shares. They have a 250 billion market cap, I think. That's what I remember seeing. MTB, 24 billion market cap. 250 way too big, sorry. 24.82 billion market cap at this point right now. They still have pretty good ownership of institutions that own them, so this is one that I'm looking at for a possible just rebound off the bottom for them because this thing is getting oversold. It touched it here, kind of came back out for air, and now it's taking its next step down. But if this thing keeps selling off, it's going to be an opportunity at some point to get in on a stock that is probably severely over, sold at this point, and will probably at least come up for air again. So you could swing it if you wanted, or you could do whatever. But it left a pretty large gap here at the 160 level down to like the 140s, and they have another large gap up here at the 186 level. So this is something I've been looking at for myself. I know this is not like a hugely popular stream. There's only 11 people on right now, but this is a stock ticker that I think is pretty safe, because if you get stuck holding this one, it's a profitable company. It's still, you can see the earnings right here. They're actually making money. It's a bank, so it's not going anywhere. They're very large, it looks like, on the East Coast, with offices from, looks like New York all the way down to Virginia and West Virginia and I guess D.C. So it's all in the kind of northeast. It looks like northeast to central. So it looks like there's a bunch of like things there. Yeah. And at this point right now, let me pull up here just to take a look and see on Ortex what's kind of going on with it. So analysts right now have... Why is it all grayed out down here? That's weird. Is this not... I mean, I'm signed in. Let's try it again. All right. Here we go. All right. So we got 10 buys, 11 holds. Nobody's saying to sell it. Right now, it looks like they had a trade signal of a buy on the 13th, which was 2 days ago. So if you look here, I don't think it has a very high short interest either. It's like a very kind of like, it's like 1% short interest right now. So this is a much safer stock than what we're used to talking about, but I think that might be a good thing, especially with the macro kind of being where it is. Look at these gaps, but there's a gap up here, like I said, at the like 175 level. There's gaps, that gap filled, but this gap has not. So this gap is open, and there's a pretty sizable gap here. So until, there's another gap here. So at some point, this thing is going to rip back up. Okay. Let's look. There's CJ said North Jersey. They have a couple branches around me. Anon, do you perform day trades, mostly swing trading, buy and hold? I have a mixture of kind of all of them. I try to dabble in a little bit of each, just depending on my strategy. For the most part, I started out by buying Amazon back when it was pre-split long ago. Like I'm talking about, like I bought Amazon probably 8 some years ago. I bought like 50 shares when it was back at sub 1,000 before all the splits happened. And, it's, obviously I got more shares during the split. But that was just a company I bought and held. I bought Tesla long ago also when it first kind of came out. And I remember at one point it went down. My Tesla shares were at one point down, I think like 70 or 80%. And I just remember sitting there going, I think this company has something long term, not really realizing the like squeeze potential on it. But what happened with that was every time shorts got squeezed, Elon would issue out an ATM, raise more cash on him, grow the business, and it just was like a repeating thing. They would short him, he would somehow pull numbers out of his whatever, and they would end up I'm not a huge Elon fan, to be honest with you, as like a person. As a businessman, I think he's really good at marketing. I can tell you that there's a whole bunch of people who kind of like worship that guy, and I'm not one of them. I did make a good amount on them. I did sell a good chunk of shares after the split. just because I needed to have some cash out, and I actually added to ATER out of all things, right? And a couple other tickers that I was trying to like start positions on. So I have a larger DTC position, a larger ATER position. I'd sold some Tesla, but Tesla was one that I bought and held. And at one point I was considering selling because I was down so much, and I just said, you know what? I I think there's more to this than just, I was looking more long term on that one, so I just held, and I'm glad I did because they went on a monster run. Um, I also sometimes look at IPOs, and one of the IPOs I found was a ticker called IIPR. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but I bought them on their IPO, IIPR. Innovative Industrial Properties. So when marijuana was launching and just getting legalized, so I bought it back at the IPO down here. So I looked at them. I looked at their financials. It looked like they had a really good leadership team in place. And I remember this one kind of chopping around a bit down here in the 15 levels, and then it just exploded. So, like, at its peak, it went from 15 all the way up to almost $290. So that one has been a very good one to me. I did take some profit back here during this peak, and I did sell some more at this peak, not knowing that there was going to be another run even higher. But I've taken a good chunk of that money, and then I've been starting to look at, okay, once it got, I want to buy back when it gets down to this level, back when it's sub 100. So it dipped there briefly for a little bit, and then since then it's gone back up. But I would like to see it back down in this range right here when I start to accumulate again on that one. But I did take some profits on those and shift them around to different like side things. Tried my hand at some options, but I've done day trading on things that I think are short term. For example, I bought some SPY puts that I sold a day later. Like I swung it overnight. I have done ones where literally I know it's going to come down, so I literally bought some calls, and then I thought I was good with it. I thought it was going to crash, and so I bought some puts. So I played both sides of it. It just all depends. But for the most part, I'm more of a swing trader or a buy and hold investor that dabbles sometimes in some day trades if I think there's something that's just too obvious. Sean says, I live in Maryland. They're in every town. It's like Walmart here. Okay. So yeah, I like this MTB, this M&T Bank. I think that there's plenty of gaps much higher up. And while the bottom may not be in right now, I think if it starts to get down into these ranges again, like this gap closed this one right here. Is there any down here? I don't see any down here because this gap was filled here. But this stock looks pretty stable for what it is. I mean, it's all over the place, but at the same time, I think it's getting way oversold, and there's going to be some sort of pushback up. So it's not super popular on the options chains. It's not really getting a ton of attention. I do think that some institutions were selling here, and my guess is because they're looking at the macro conditions and they're just going, all right, stock's up here. Let's go ahead and just get our stuff out. So I think what I saw was roughly about 30% of institutions may have unloaded some of their shares on this particular company, but I think they will buy back in if we get like a reversal next year. So, all right, Alex C wants to look at KIT. All right, let's take a look at KIT. KIT. Okay. I see a gap here off the bat at $9. What is this? Nauticus Robotics. I don't know much about them, so let's take a look and see kind of the generalized KIT. Okay. So overall risk is low. That's good. They have a very small float. That's also very interesting. Not a ton of institutional ownership. Their offering ability is pretty low. They don't have a huge shelf, and they're starting to need some money, but it looks like they do have some convertible notes here. It looks like they are starting to run out of money, though. They've got basically a little bit less than, basically like 3/4 left of, you know. All right, so they did have, it looks like, some warrants that are not registered up at 11. The current price right now is $4.52. These pipes aren't registered either. They're both at 11. So they can unlock, it looks like, about 15 million shares, but the stock price has to be up at 11 a share for them to unlock it. Same thing with this one, too. None of these are registered, though. They do have these convertible notes. So let's take a look at what they look like. All right, so they're based out of Texas, it looks like. They do have warrants, though, up at 11. So I'm sure at some point they're going to want to go up there and get them if they can. All right, let me take a look real quick. Okay, that's all normal. All right, so cash equivalents and cash. So they have more cash now. That's good. Certificates of deposit. That's fine. Where did they? What is that? Accounts receivable. That went down slightly. But inventories. Where did they add this? So I don't know their business model offhand, so I would probably have to dive into this. All right, so they do have a couple Class Bs. Where is the total shares outstanding? All right, so they have 625 million authorized. So they have 47. And am I reading that wrong? Let's see. So 47 million and 13 million shares issued, respectively. 47 and 9.6 million, respectively. Is that for maybe the Class A's and Class B's? That's my guess of how they read that. It's a little weird how they wrote that, but basically it looks like they have Class A shares here and they have Class B shares here. Let's see what the revenue takes a look at. All right, so the last 3 months, service revenue has grown. That's good. So total revenue's gone up. The cost, though, also went up as well. In fact, it went up way more. So they are still at an operating loss at this point. So a net loss of $6 million. So that's why the stock probably went down pretty significantly, right? But my question would be, so net loss grew over the next. What do these guys do? Let's see. They are a developer of ocean robots and services delivered to the ocean industry. So they initially incorporated as Clean Tech Acquisition. And then went through a merger, it looks like, to NUTX Robotics. That's probably where all the B's are, because they basically merged two companies together. Okay. Let's see. So the company received the business combination with the CLAQ net cash of roughly 15 million, and the company also assumed, I guess, 30,000 in prepaids and 15 million in accounts payable, accrued liabilities. Okay. Then you guys watch Suits? Anyone watch Suits? I just started that show. BPT is a pretty low div. What are you saying? BPT's. Excuse me. BPT. Biopath Holdings. Small cap. Small float. Are these guys like an energy stock, or it's a oil and gas company? Royalty revenues. Yeah, I don't know much about these guys. Let's see. 1989, Standard Oil conveyed an overriding royalty interest. It was formed into owning and administering the royalty interest. They represent the right to receive a per barrel royalty of 16 and basically a 0.5% of the lesser of the first 90,000 barrels. So these guys get a royalty, it looks like. That's interesting. I didn't look at their ticker, but what is it? BPT. Oh, it paid its dividend. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I've never seen. I mean, obviously, it went way down here, and then it kind of squeezed up. It looks like. Why this run? Was this some sort of, that was just a dividend? Dividend earnings run up? Because I know like oil right now has been pretty beat down, but they're making tons of money, or they're recording record earnings that will probably go down for a little bit, but eventually I think it's going to go back up again, because I think what's going to end up happening is even if demand falls for oil, they've limited the supply, so they're going to be able to kind of charge what they want, and that will keep them pretty, So that's oil's one that I'm going to be researching more in the next couple weeks, trying to find some good ones, because I know a lot of them moved up on over the last last bit. But let's see. Yeah, they had their run here in April. This is when oil prices were all through the roof because of Ukraine, and it's kind of came back to normal levels here. Looks like they've already filled that gap there. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to save for like stock with dividends, that's not a bad thing. They obviously have enough cash to do that if they're issuing it a dividend. I know some of the oil stocks will be doing cash buybacks of shares, which means that they'll reduce the amount of float, which means that your stock price will go up because of that. But yeah, we can research a couple of these things. I know. What's Exxon been doing? I haven't looked at them in a while. Yeah, Exxon's been doing nice since its bottom. It's a big company. Let's see. Because I remember, I think I sold some Exxon back here in the 70s, and then I meant to buy back in when it was low, but I was like, well, what, this is COVID crash, right? And I was like, I don't know when I'm supposed to be buying this, but I think in this case, I'm going to wait on touching this while it's up here. That's not super attractive to me at this point. I think the stock price will probably come back down more into this range. So I'm going to hold off on Exxon. But yeah, if you want to, like, BBT is interesting. Obviously, they've got a dividend, which is nice. Obviously, so does ExxonMobil and a couple other tickers. You can see the dividends are right there. I'll go back to, BBT. They have their dividends here. Some people just play it for the dividend, getting the X date and all that. Yeah. All right. So, do you guys have any tickers you specifically want to look at? I know we didn't really look at ATER, but ATER's not doing anything, to be honest with you guys. At this point right now, we're just barcoding down here. There's a gap here still that we need to fill, but my guess would be we may get another big dip down before we head back up into this range. I think at some point next year, we'll see at least the stock push back into this channel and then possibly get up into here before they issue out all the dilution and send it back into this range. I think right now a fair price is right around this area. That's why we're just kind of sitting there, because nobody's buying, nobody's selling. It's just kind of like, it is what it is. That dilution though, I mean, we were up here. This is when they announced we were going to expect to do it. And then they literally, like, the next day we had came back. This is where it gapped down, and that's when they issued out the dilution right here. So that's not, I didn't love that, obviously. And now we're all kind of stuck down here until eventually, when they try to push up for warrants or unlocking some things, we may see a bounce. But I have a prediction right now that I think it's going to get down into this level. It may push down to this level before it recovers. With the SPY doing what it's doing, which is here. Let me stretch it out a little bit. With the SPY kind of respecting this and breaking down, I figure if the SPY is tanking, I expect ATER to also be going down with the market, because there's going to be algos selling again. And once those algos start selling, we may see that push down just solely on, there's not a ton of people buying the stock at this point. So if it gets pushed down enough, there'll be some value shoppers that will come through, just knowing that, okay, we're paying under, book value for this. Let's go ahead and take some chances on a couple of small caps, but though we possibly will go ahead and, take one more leg lower, maybe two, and then maybe pop up. That's at least what I'm hoping, is at some point Armistice goes for those warrants, and then my goal has been trying to get this is where let me see if I can draw. Can you color these? I wonder if you can. I'm just going to draw this line here at 320, roughly. So this one right here, okay, here we go. Change the color. We'll make it red. That's where warrants are, and warrants are also at $2 here. Now they paid $190 for these, and I think they paid $290 for the 320s. How concerning is ATER's balance sheet? So ATER's balance sheet right now, it's not great. Like, we can basically do this. Let me just pull up the filing. It's not horrible. It's not great. Basically, they're at a medium risk according to Dilution Tracker. there's enough cash right now to kind of last roughly. We don't know what they spent on their acquisition. We know they acquired something in the health, space. We don't know exactly what it was or what it cost at this point. We won't know that until the next filing. So, excuse me, at this point right now, they have basically 3/4 left to cash on the current cash burn. They did say that they were trying to reduce their cash burn, because, obviously they were kind of getting nailed by shipping for a while. So the shipping coming down, that will help out slightly. So, this is all they have left on the shelf. They only have 11.5 million raisable on the shelf. They need to basically issue out a new shelf if they're going to dilute further. So I know they wanted to go into offensive mode and start buying some acquisitions that hopefully will be profitable, getting good prices on them. On the balance sheet itself, mainly the thing I'm looking at is their cash. Overall, their revenue's okay, but what I can tell you is their cash is the most concerning thing, because with most of these small cap companies, they're not profitable at this point in their young lives. So having cash right now going into the last filing, they had 30 million plus they sold another. Did this include, I think, part of the warrant money? I don't know if it did or not. I think we had close to 40 something million, based off of what I remember seeing at the filing. Because they got 20 million extra, which I thought they should have gotten more if they were patient. But can't change that. But they wrote off a lot of their goodwill. So their goodwill basically is going to be no more. They're not going to get killed by it anymore. I'm sorry, I was looking at this one. So they had 25 million cash, so they would have gotten another 20 million, and that would be about 45 million. We know they bought some sort of company, so we don't know how much they spent on that. So this is where we're at right now. This number should be roughly around 30 million, something like that. Let me see what they have. Roughly, they're saying 20. My guess would be closer to like 25, but we don't know for a fact. But you can look at Tyrion's they're filing for yourself. It is, I'll put the link in the YouTube channel if I can find out how to do that. Let me see. Video link. I'll put it in the YouTube channel so you guys can take a look at it yourselves. It also depends on your time frame. Like 10 years from now, this all could be, looking back like, oh, well, the company recovered and everything was fine. There it goes. Okay. But if you're looking at the next couple weeks, we're just hoping for the warrant run. If you just want to get out, it just all depends on what your long-term strategy is on ATER. Me, I'm just trying to get my average down as much as possible. I want to get my average down knowing that the warrants are here and here. If I can get knowing there's warrants here and there's warrants here, the lower I can get my average, the better I feel about holding ATER long, because, say I get my average down to 320s. I'm still in the, I believe, high threes. So if I can get if we go sub 1 in the next couple of weeks, I can get my average closer to at least the warrants here, and then continue to average down, hopefully get it down below 3. That's my goal. I may have to shift things around just to do that. So if we do get a run up, then at that point I can reassess what I'm doing. But I also have options for 2024 as well. So yeah. Besides that, we'll take a look real quick at DTC, just to take a look at what's going on there. They basically just been barcoding. They had that one slight run up on very low volume, and then since then it's just been kind of like chopping around this. For them, they're probably priced around fair value is what I'd say. They're saying fair value's up here at like the 8 to 12 range, but I'll be honest with you. I think based off their balance sheet and the macro, they're probably that's why it's not moving too much. Like this is basically this line in the sand that anytime it goes below that, people start buying. So they also don't have a huge float, so they can't mess around too much with it. But short interest on that has dropped significantly. Yeah, it's only 3% short interest now. So most shorts have closed down. They have much higher what's it called? Much higher price targets on it. So if you look at the price targets, for example, on DTC, the price targets actually say most analysts have their price targets between 7 and I've seen as high as 12. Yep. These ones were from May. So the most recent ones have been basically like the 8 to 12 range. And I think when you have something like that where it's priced at like $3-4 a share, and that's a 2x to go up to that, that has a chance at some point to run. So we'll see. Hopefully Black Friday and Cyber Monday was actually better. Yeah, they did say that it was 60% better than last year. That's a good thing. I think the thing that's going to help them the most is actually going to be watching them and see how fast they're selling through some of the inventory that was really expensive, because the new inventory that they're going to pick up is going to be on much better margins. Because you have to remember, they were paying like 4 or 5x what they should have been paying to stock inventory, but they didn't want to slow their growth, so they kept paying it, not waiting for it to come down in price. And then they want to like be the number one like dehumidifier in the space, and then all of a sudden you can't buy any of their product for 6 months because they don't have any. So they bit the bullet and they kept stuff on the shelves to help grow the brand on Amazon. So but DTC, I think, has a chance of, they've got 5 buys. If you sit here and look, they've got insiders over the last, I think, 6 or 12 months. They bought 9 times. You can see all the buys here, 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 here. They've been buying. The CFO and the CEO are both buying this brand. So there's nobody selling on at least the insiders. So not a horrible thing. Yeah, oil, dividend stocks, those are all going to be super good things in the future, because I do think we're going to be heading into a down year next year. Based off my SPY, kind of like just what it's respecting that downtrend right now. Until that breaks through and backtest and heads up, then we have to make a new line. But at this point right now, I think it's going to go like this. I think it's going to come down in waves. Then we're going to make a lower low, eventually maybe even bounce off this gap fill down there, and then possibly retest some of these levels here. Will it go like this and kind of bounce up this on the way down? Sure, I don't know. We'll find out. But that's kind of where I see things going. Everyone else good? Anything going on with everyone? Let's see. Looks like DTC's always up big time aftermarket and down during the day. Yeah. John, I don't know if you're in here, but John, it's because there's no liquidity on DTC. Like there's no volume. So during the after hours, you can literally control the price with like a couple hundred shares. It will make it fly. And then when the algos turn on in the morning, they just push it back down and keep it in this range on DTC. So I saw that was a question that somebody asked of me. And then here, Yeah, 120 a barrel on the run back when oil was screaming up higher. Right now, 70. So I do think they'll go back up at some point, but I do think earnings are going to be less than they were because I don't think they can sustain that where they were just literally charging people like $6, a gallon and making record profits. It's kind of like the shipping industry when with ATER, they were just hammering anyone that was shipping overseas, and all of them were in cahoots with each other, and it literally took the U.S. like I think trade and Biden coming in saying like this is ridiculous. If you guys are going to do this, we'll find another way to get these items over because they're all like Chinese companies that like run those. So and they all kind of ganged up together and were like, oh, we're all raising rates, which is you're not supposed to do. So, but like they were making record profits when all these things were doing that. Hey, Anon, you don't do nightly streams anymore, huh? No, Shadi, I was gonna say we moved it to bi-weekly just to kind of help with alleviating, so I can give my wife a little bit more time. We had a conversation about how much time I was dedicating, and it was too much. So I'm gonna try this thing where I'm doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll jump on for a couple hours if whatever we talk about, and then that's kind of what we're gonna go for right now. Is I'll cover what I can in those couple bits of chunks, and maybe at some point I can do more. But at this point right now, I need to spend some more time with the wife because she yeah, it just that's how it is right now. I like talking to you guys. I like hanging out, but at the same time, like it was getting to be a little too much. I think she felt like she never saw me anymore because we wake up early for work and we get the kids ready. We bring them to daycare and school for my daughter. She goes to school now. She goes to kindergarten, and then on the other side, I go to work all day. I get home around like 6, 7 at night. We put the kids in. We feed them, put them in the bath, and then by the time I would finish that, it would be like 9 something. I would go down the stream, and then I wouldn't even see her. Yeah, exactly. So she was like, "Listen, we were married, but I don't even see you anymore." And I'm like, "That's not great." So we had a conversation about me cutting back a little bit, and so I took a break from the server for a little bit, and you guys see kind of the result of that. Things went amok a bit, but that's fine. We're getting it back under control. It's winter now here, so I'll have more time to be on like the Discord during the day. When I was during the summers when it's nice out, my job has me go out, to different things, and I'm in the office a lot less. So, but during the winter, it's cold. I'm not really out in the field anymore, so I'm in the office most of the time, so I at least will be able to kind of research things, look at things with you guys. If you came late, I did talk about MTB, which is M&T Bank Stadium, or I'm sorry, M&T Bank or M&T Bank. They have 2 stadiums, I guess, in Buffalo and I guess in Baltimore. But this is the ticker. It's got a gap up here. It's got a gap here, another gap here. It's been kind of screaming lower. It's right now around 23 on the RSI on daily. So this is one that I'm keeping my eye on because I do think at some point when we do reverse, maybe sometime next year, this is going to be basically the 2023. I do think at some point we will fill these gaps again because there's gaps there, gap here, gap down here, gap here. So when things do eventually reverse, we may have a bigger crash, happen. But I do think at this point it's getting way oversold because I picked it up on a scanner that things were under 25 RSI on the daily that were bigger companies. And this is one that flagged me. There's only 3 of them. And this is one of the ones that flagged me. And I recognized the name. So I just said, all right, I'm going to take a look at more of this. And I actually asked Fish to look up on Bloomberg to kind of confirm some things, but he actually thought the financials look pretty good. They are profitable, unlike Ethereum and a couple other tickers that we've been kind of playing with. So I think that's a good thing. And so I'm going to start calling out more of these like large caps companies just because obviously we've seen what happens with these small caps. They've kind of go through these cycles, and they just get absolutely hammered down. And I think people need to also look at some things that have less risk, that are still good bottoms to pull. And then eventually, if you do get stuck on them, it's not, are we going to get diluted on again, or is this company going to run out of cash when they're cash flow positive and they're just big companies? They may have a down period, but they'll eventually go back up during the next bull run. So exactly. So what I'd like to do is find more of these plays that are a little bit safer, that if you do get stuck holding them, it's not the end of the world. Like, they will recover in the next couple of years. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, is I'll be building out a scanner, maybe calling out some more plays. None of it's financial advice. It's just me noticing things and then saying, this one just caught my eye because the RSI was so oversold. I think we should have done here before, but if you zoom out a little bit, like, this is the RSI right now, and it's below 30. This line right here is 30. Anytime it goes below there, you're going to see a reversal at some point. So just wanted to point that out for anyone that's still watching. And you guys have a great evening. I will see you guys tomorrow. And, well, I'm leaving my business right now, drive home, but nice talking. Yeah, good talking to you, man. Yeah, and jump on the Discord. Hit me up. I'll be there. All right, so you guys have a great evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the Discord. If you have any things you guys want to run by me, you can always DM me, or if you can call me out, just do the @Anon, and I'll see what I can do to pull anything. If you need information or we want to look at something together, we can do that. All right, have a great night, guys.